Have you ever really tried so hard to help someone who's struggling? Like you throw yourself right into their emotional mess,
Oh, yeah.
only to find maybe a few months down the line you're just completely exhausted.
Drained.
Right, that feeling of being utterly depleted. It's constant tension, isn't it? Especially in like the helping profession.
Yeah.
You want to connect, you want to feel what they feel, but you also need to survive it emotionally. For a long time, people sort of assumed that exhaustion was just the price you paid for caring.
But what if?
Yeah.
What if that whole idea is just, well, wrong? What if the science is telling us something different?
Go on.
That real sustainable caring, what researchers are calling compassion, maybe it doesn't require that kind of self-sacrifice at all. That the key to being, a lifetime super carer is actually wired into our brain's own reward system.
Ah, okay. That's the core puzzle we're really diving into today, isn't it?
We've looked at this comprehensive literature survey, the science behind compassion, to try and understand how compassion isn't just like a nice fuzzy feeling.
Right.
It seems to be neurologically distinct. It's powerful and maybe even self-sustaining as a motivation.
Yeah.
And for you listening, getting this difference, it could fundamentally change how you think about, well, emotional labor and taking care of yourself.
Okay, so let's draw that line clearly.
Yeah.
Because in everyday chat, we mix up empathy and compassion all the time.
All the time, yeah.
But in the lab, they look really different.
They really do. When
Yeah.
scientists talk about compassion, they have a pretty strict definition.
Which is?
It's a sensitivity to suffering in self and others, okay? And this is key, coupled with a commitment to try to alleviate and prevent it.
Okay, so it's active.
It's active. It's got 3 core steps, basically. First, you've got to notice the suffering. You have to be aware. Second, you generate a benevolent emotional response like warmth, concern, And third, crucially, there's this desire, this motivation to actually do something about it, to relieve the pain. It's defined by that intention to act.
And that intention is what really splits it off from empathy, isn't it? The survey really highlights this. Empathy is more about feeling with the other person.
Exactly. Feeling with. If they're distressed, you kind of mirror that distress in yourself.
Like catching their feeling.
Precisely.
Yeah.
It's resonance. You're basically downloading their emotional state into your own system. Now, that's great for understanding someone.
Sure.
But if the suffering is intense or goes on, that resonance can lead straight into what we call empathic distress and then burnout.
Right, because you just feel awful yourself.
Yeah.
And maybe less able to help because you're drowning too.
Totally. You're overwhelmed. So compassion then is more like feeling for them.
Okay. Feeling for.
Yeah. You see the suffering, you acknowledge it, but you keep that little bit of emotional distance, that boundary.
So you feel concern, warmth towards them.
Exactly. Which is a positive, proactive kind of feeling. It's not absorbing their pain. And that shift, that for instead of with, that's why compassion seems to lead to more sustainable helping. And kind of surprisingly, it can even feel good for the helper.
That's really interesting. And you mentioned it's not just some modern psychological construct, that it has deep evolutionary roots.
Oh, absolutely. The thinking is that it evolved directly from the ancient mammalian caregiving system.
Like a mother protecting her young.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
Think about that intense, almost primal drive a parent have to protect and comfort their baby. That system is wired for action, for reducing suffering in a very targeted way.
Okay.
And as humans develop more complex thinking, we basically just scaled up that wiring. We started extending that concern beyond immediate family to strangers, to our communities, even to, animals or the planet. We became these super carers.
Super carers. I like that. Okay, let's shift gears then and look inside the brain. If compassion is more sustainable, feels better, what's actually happening neurologically? What's the basis for this helping high?
Right. This is where the neuroimaging studies, the fMRI scans, give us that big aha moment.
Yeah.
There was a big meta-analysis looking at lots of studies, and it shows pretty clearly when people are actively generating compassion, they light up a brain network that's distinctly separate from the networks involved in feeling pain or distress yourself.
Okay, so it's not just dialing down the pain network, it's activating something else entirely.
Something else, yeah. We consistently see activity in places like the periaqueductal gray, the anterior insula, the anterior cingulate cortex, the ACC.
Okay, jargon alert. Let's break down what those bits do. The ACC, for instance.
Right, sorry. Think of the ACC as like the brain's emotional control tower. It's really important for noticing emotions, spotting conflicts, like seeing someone suffer and knowing something needs to be done.
And the anterior insula.
That's more about mapping your internal body state,
Yeah.
or heart rate, that gut feeling, It tells the brain what's happening inside you.
So in empathic distress, those systems might be screaming, danger, threat, feel bad.
Exactly. They map the distress, detect the conflict, and the result is often feeling overwhelmed, wanting to withdraw. But with compassion,
Yes.
those same systems get activated, they notice the need, they map the feeling, but then they pivot the response. And how they pivot is the really cool part.
Okay.
Compassion uniquely taps into the brain's mesolimbic reward pathway.
Okay, now that sounds important. The reward pathway, that's not about stress or obligation, right? That's the pleasure center.
Pretty much. We're talking about areas like the nucleus accumbens, the nanac, and the ventral tegmental area, VTA. These places are packed with dopamine receptors.
Dopamine. So it's feeling good.
Feeling good, motivation, wanting more of something. Compassion isn't like paying an emotional tax. It's literally triggering the same systems that light up when you, get a compliment, achieve a goal, eat something delicious.
So the brain is saying, hey, helping feels good, do more of that. It's reinforcing the altruism itself.
That's the idea. It seems to change the value calculation. It makes helping intrinsically rewarding, rather than just a duty you perform until you collapse. It shifts motivation from sacrifice to, self-reinforcing positive action.
That's huge. And it's not just a fleeting feeling. You mentioned training.
Right. And this is also really striking. The science shows this system is actually trainable. They did studies where people practiced compassion meditation for just a few weeks. And they found increased connections, stronger communication between that reward center, the nucleus accumbens, and the part of the brain involved in planning and goal setting, the dorsolateral prefrontal cortex.
Wait, hang on. So the brain doesn't just feel good when being compassionate. It physically rewires itself to make being helpful easier, more automatic, more rewarding down the line.
That seems to be exactly what the data is pointing towards. That increased connectivity is like the neural signature of becoming more altruistic.
Wow.
And there's hormonal backup too. Oxytocin often gets called the cuddle hormone, which is a bit simplistic.
Right.
But research, especially around something called the saliency hypothesis, suggests oxytocin plays a key role. It seems to make us more sensitive, more attentive to cues of distress in others. It sort of primes the pump, makes us notice the suffering, which then allows that whole compassionate reward response to kick in. It sets the stage for caring.
That is really powerful stuff. Okay, so we've talked brain structure. What about the rest of the body? How does being in this compassionate state regularly affect our physical health, our stress levels?
Well, the physiological signature of compassion looks very different from stress. It seems protective, even restorative.
How so?
When we engage compassion, we tend to activate the parasympathetic nervous system. That's your rest and digest system.
The opposite of fight or flight.
Exactly. The opposite of the sympathetic system that drives chronic stress. So with compassion, your heart rate tends to slow down a bit. You release beneficial hormones.
Like oxytocin.
Like oxytocin, yeah. And importantly, studies show that compassion training consistently increases something called heart rate variability, or HRV.
HRV, I've heard of that. That's a good thing, right?
It's considered a really key marker of good emotional regulation and resilience. High HRV means your heart rate is flexible, your body can adapt quickly to demands, including stress. Low HRV is linked to chronic stress and health problems.
So compassion literally makes your body better at handling stress.
It looks that way.
Okay.
It seems to help us access a whole different way of responding to threat or difficulty, instead of just fight or flight.
There's another option.
There's what Shelley Taylor and others call the tend and befriend response. It's thought to be an evolutionary alternative, particularly prominent when oxytocin is involved. It promotes connection, cooperation, seeking safety in groups, protecting others.
Instead of just defending yourself or running away.
Right, and that response pattern is much healthier long-term than constantly triggering stress hormones. We see evidence for this. People high in self-compassion show less activation of that sympathetic nervous system, lower inflammation, when they face psychological stress.
Okay, let's make that concrete. Say, you mess up badly at work, big mistake. The person high in self-criticism, maybe low in self-compassion, might just beat themselves up, right? Ruminate, get anxious, activate that whole fight or flight thing internally.
Yeah, tons of cortisol, feeling terrible, maybe getting defensive.
But the self-compassionate person, how do they handle it differently based on this model?
They'd still acknowledge the suffering. Oof, I made a mistake. This feels bad. But then the response is different. It's kindness towards themselves, recognizing that messing up is just part of being human. Everyone does it. That's the common humanity piece.
Okay.
And then, from that place of acceptance, not shame, they can motivate themselves to fix it, to learn from it, without that extra layer of physiological stress tearing them down.
And that's why we see these links between self-compassion and better mental health. Less depression, less anxiety.
Exactly. Lower psychopathology across the board, depression, anxiety, stress, even things like suicidal ideation. It really does act like a kind of physical medicine for the mind and body.
And the really encouraging part is you're saying this isn't just something you either have or you don't. It's trainable.
Highly trainable, yes. It's not just a soft skill. It's a capacity we can build, like a muscle.
How do we do that? What works?
Well, the literature is full of evidence for different methods. Things like loving-kindness meditation, LKM, that's a classic practice, focus specifically on cultivating feelings of warmth and care systematically towards yourself and others.
Okay, meditation. What else?
There are also more clinical approaches, like compassion-focused therapy or CFT.
CFT. What's the focus there?
CFT was developed primarily by researchers like Paul Gilbert. It directly targets things like high self-criticism and shame, which are kind of the enemies of compassion.
Right.
The model breaks compassion down into trainable skills or competencies, things like being sensitive to suffering, feeling sympathy, but also practical things like being tolerant of distress, being non-judgmental, and actually taking caring action.
And I know Kristen Neff's work on mindful self-compassion is also really influential here, breaking it down into, like, self-kindness versus self-judgment.
Common humanity versus isolation. Mindfulness versus over-identification. Yes, her framework has been huge in making these ideas practical and accessible. And these tools aren't just theoretical, they're being used right now.
Where?
In very demanding settings, like in healthcare with doctors and nurses, specifically to combat what used to be called compassion fatigue, that burnout we talked about at the start. They're finding it helps build resilience.
The cost of caring doesn't have to be so high.
Exactly. And we even see the biological proof of training. It's not just changing how people feel or act. It seems to change the brain itself. Long-term meditators, for instance, show measurable increases in gray matter, like more brain cells in those key areas like the ACC and the insula.
So you're literally thickening the parts of your brain involved in emotional regulation and awareness.
That's what the evidence suggests. It's pretty remarkable.
Okay, this has been fascinating. Let's try and distill this down. If you, listening, take away 3 core things from this deep dive, what should they be?
Okay, 3 things. First, compassion is sustainable. It's different from empathy neurologically. Because it taps into the brain's reward system, feeling for others is actually reinforcing. It helps prevent burnout. It doesn't cause it.
Sustainable. What's number 2?
Second, compassion is physical medicine. It actively counters the body's stress response. It lowers sympathetic activation, boosts that healthy heart rate variability, and shifts you into that calmer, tend to befriend state. It's good for your physical resilience.
Physical medicine. Okay. And third?
And third, compassion is trainable. This isn't fixed. Practices like meditation, CFT, LKM, they work. They can produce real, measurable changes in your brain structure and function, boosting your capacity to care effectively and resiliently throughout life.
Sustainable, physical medicine, and trainable. Great summary. And just zooming out for a final perspective, while the basic brain wiring seems universal, how we express this stuff varies, right?
Oh, definitely. Culture plays a huge role. You see differences, for example, between maybe more collectivistic societies in the East, where the emphasis might naturally fall more on compassion for the group, versus more individualistic Western societies, where lately there's been a strong focus on developing self-compassion.
Neither is right or wrong, just different emphasis.
Exactly. And understanding those nuances is really important, especially if we want to apply this science to bigger challenges, things like social justice issues or motivating environmental action, the drive to reduce suffering in the person next to you. It's fundamentally the same system we need to engage to tackle suffering on a global scale.
Which leads perfectly into our final thought for you to chew on. We know tech is already being used to track physiological states related to compassion. VR is being used for training. So, Where could this go? Could we imagine using AI, maybe machine learning, to analyze all the complexities, our individual genetics, our personality traits, our cultural background? Could we one day have like a personalized compassion coach, digitally tailored to your specific brain to help you maximize your ability to care without burning yourself out?